in this sub-region, and equally we also oppose use of dirty energy, mega hydropower, and coal mining project in this region. In the Asia-Pacific region, I like to flag some of the issues that we must urgently address, especially the large data gaps, which limit a comprehensive and robust progress assessment of the SDGs. The most data-poor SDGs in the South Asian regions, as per the ESCAPE's report, are reduced inequalities under Goal 10, climate action Goal 13, and peace, justice, and creating strong institution under Goal 16. So therefore, we need to strongly work on that and to have a regional cooperation for this. And national level statistical system in the region must embrace new source of data and establish new partnerships and look for innovative solutions. In order to achieve better regional cooperation and stability and to leverage on the future economic dividends, the region have to revitalize and move on beyond the confines of SAARC and look for better regional integrity. We have the key recommendations, dear Chair and Moderator, and urge our governments to adopt law with a human rights-based and gender equality approach, including on eviction, refugee crisis, ensure visibility of urban and rural poor, and recognition of them as full citizens. To provide adequate opportunities to maintain sustainable living standards, including access to quality education, decent employment, transport, and decent wage, and lead us to sustainable consumption patterns. We also like to draw attention for the people to ensure provide social protection measures, extend participatory governance, including participatory budgeting and community monitoring, and also the risk-informed development where local people can take part and provide their decision. And finally, we also need to address root causes of inequality and injustice in South Asian region with the concerted effort of all the governments. Sustainable development requires us to rethink the development pathways. Can we achieve inclusive growth for all without trashing the environment? Can we take the pledge from here to secure food, peace, and security for the peoples of this region from this meeting? I think the solution is in our hand. Thank you, dear moderator, and all the government delegations.
Thank you very much. Thank you for highlighting all the different issues that is being reviewed next year at the global level, and a very strong commitment of the civil society in taking forward the agenda. And especially at the end, you rightly said that we have to be optimistic, and then we can do it. I think the can-do spirit is really very important. Now, I think we have done the presentation part. I'm afraid that we have very limited time. Therefore, I will open it only for a couple of questions, so that we can have some idea. Yes, I will. Oh, sorry. We can only open up a couple of questions, and I'll try to see if some of our presenters can respond to them. I will just pick up 2 or 3. I will start from gentlemen in the beginning, and then I'll go over there. Yeah. Yeah. On the front, yeah. Please make as short a comment as possible if it is a comment.
Thank you,
but
Chair.
Then
Thank you,
quickly
Chair.
go to the question, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I am P.P. Shangal. I have heard all the speakers. Now, if we really want to succeed in monitoring and really evaluate the effect, the impact of SDGs, I think the number of indicators which we have planned, they have to be reduced to some extent, because I find a little bit overlapping, and probably one indicator can take the effect, because that will help us in 2 ways. We will be able to collect the data more realistic, more reliable, which is indeed of the hour. And secondly, from my own experience, I have been in this field area of monitoring and evaluation for the last 50 years. I belong to ISS. Now, I have found that the grassroots level worker who really goes and collects the data, he is not fully trained. We may have a high quality officers at the central level, at the state level, but when we go down to the grass, they do not even understand the definition of some of the concepts involved in our formats. So I think these 2 points may have to be taken.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Over there, please. On this side.
Well, distinguished panel, thank you very much for your insightful presentations. Well, you all gave some numbers, like some statistics that you all can work out these plans and that plans. But our intra-regional trade, which is only 5%, when it comes to statistics. So what's the role the politicians are playing, and what's the role the SAARC is playing at this point is what we have to think about. I mean, if intra-regional trade grows like East Asia, which was 30%, if we are 5%, if we can grow that, definitely these sustainable procedures will come into place. So I would like the honorable panel to share some thoughts on this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Down there, yeah. Over there. Maybe that would be a final one if you are quick.
A very good afternoon to the panel. Sir, I'm just a management graduate, so please, if you find the question irrelevant to the context, please forgive me. So my question is that we have the two very entirely different concepts of the protectionism and the globalization. And as far as I'm concerned, and I understand the situation, the entire sustainability development goals are based on globalization. So what do you think we should do to mitigate the effects of protectionist policies that we are facing? And Sanyukta ma'am, I would like to hear more from you on this, if you can please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very much. I'm sure that this is it for the time being. If there is particular urge, I will give you one more. That's the final one, please, over there. Oh, yeah. Maybe lady here in the wing. Yes, I'm just trying to be a little bit balanced as well. You know, this is a major agenda, balance.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. As we know, I am Annie. I've come from the Vadana Todo Abhiyan in India. As we all know and we all recognize that South Asia is very critical to achieving the SDGs, but we also know that the most vulnerable sections are very critical to achieving the SDGs, and that's really the ethos and spirit of SDGs in terms of leave no one behind. Very encouraged to see all the countries, how they have aligned and are implementing the processes of SDGs, but we would really like to hear a little more about how do you identify these vulnerable communities within each country? Because we know that it means more effort, more money, more capacity building to reach those last mile. We really would like the governments to give us a little more insight on how this process is integrated into the overall SDG implementation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was hoping that I'll give you a flow there, but I think we have had something. So I must, I think, stop the dialogue with the audience. Maybe I will not be able to give the flow to everyone. So because then that will take another time. If you don't have that much of an urge, then I'll just ask Madam from India, Samyukta Samadha. There was a particularly dedicated question to you, and anybody who wants to take up particular, the questions that you want to reply, yes, I'll give it to them all these as well. First, I'll give the floor to Madam Samyukta Samadha.
Thank you, Chair. To understand more clearly, the question related to whether SDGs goes more with protectionism or globalization, I think this is a global agenda which has been internalized by all countries and has to be internalized for the sake of development, for the sake of progress, and for the sake of inclusive growth and progress in each of these countries. So I clearly don't understand what is the global aspect of this, because these are aspirational goals. These are aspirational targets which each one of these countries have to aspire for, have to collectively work for. So protectionism really doesn't figure out in terms of SDGs is what I can say, but to address your concerns, I think I would like to have a chat with you over the lunch. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maldives?
I would like to say something regarding the first question the gentleman asked. I clearly agree on your point that we have to really look into the indicators that we want to be reporting. In the Maldives, what we have done is adopted the local indicators we are already reporting at the national level or to another convention or something similar rather than exactly what is stated in the SDGs. And the SDGs gives a lot of room for leveraging the indicators and adapting and nationalizing or localizing the indicators. So as a country, we can really decide what we would want to report and what is relevant to us. For us in the Maldives, all-season road in 40 kilometers is not relevant at all, because we are the average size of the island is about 1 to 2 square kilometers. So I don't see any point that we have to be reporting that, but what could be more relevant to us could be a regular ferry system that is providing access to the people in the islands. And also we urge the government sectors not to report or have dual reporting, so that we are already adapting the national indicators that are existing and reporting the SDG indicators to fill the gaps that where we don't have indicators that could be adapted. And also many of the Caribbean and Pacific countries, they have got together and decided on a set of particular indicators that they would be reporting, and also added some other indicators which would be more relevant in their context. So these are some things that have already happened, so I would like to share that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I also add on the first question regarding data management. This is pertinent question. Of course, we Nepal have 479 these indicators. Though we do not have the 100 indicators, we do not have data, but we develop this much of indicators for future plan. We are planning for 2030. So in future survey, also this year we made the economic census, and some new indicators were incorporated from this document too. So in the future census, also in future survey, we will incorporate this data. And now last year we don't have data at provincial level, but this year we able to generate the 130 indicators data, and now we are working for more than 100 about some indicators in local level also. So that's why we generate we listed them in the our document that may be incorporated in our future MIS, our future surveys, and that may able to incorporate our national system. So that's why we have a little longer list. Thank you.
The floor to Mr. Mizanur Rahman, final one.
So I take the opportunity to respond to a couple of questions on the data generation. As other colleagues said, I also admit that it is an issue of in progress. In fact, always trial and error things are happening in our case also. But in terms of garnering data or managing data, we have district level offices, government offices, so even down to the union level. So, and all institutions are engaged in the whole process. So, given the fact that the government has demonstrated huge commitment to it, so we don't think that it will be a much more. But again, there are technical issues, so, and as we progress, we hope we'll have a better data. And responding to the questions, this is in my private capacity, in fact I am responding, the issues of trade between the South Asia and the Southeast Asia. Of course, we have, if we compare these two regions, we see both challenges and potentials. But as my colleague Ms. Samardar said, that the SDGs has been a global developmental package, so on the domestic front we look forward to it, but again, as partnership is also a key element in SDG implementation, we hope the South Asian leadership will be able to lead us the way we deserve to be led. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Madam Mendes from Sri Lanka, just a couple of
I would like to add my points, especially the question raised from back that Madam raised regarding the vulnerable groups in the society. In the context of Sri Lanka, we have identified most vulnerable groups are the female, and because especially the majority of the population is female, but if you say the employment participation among female, it is 35%. So we thought that female are more vulnerable than males. And from the other hand side, we have identified youth, and among the employment rate in the youth is more high in Sri Lanka, as well as the people lived in the war-affected areas. Mostly we have identified those are the more vulnerable groups in Sri Lanka. So the government has recognized this question and this issue, and we have set some programs to make them to attain that purpose of the SDG, that leave no one behind.
Thank you very much. I think this brings us to the conclusion of the presentation as well as the interaction. I just by way of summarizing, I don't want to summarize, this is so rich and it is impossible to summarize so much of a presentation here in a couple of minutes. I just want to take away a few things and stress a couple of things that I've heard as a common theme coming from the presentations. I think every presentation here stressed that there is a big opportunity for transformative change through the implementation of SDGs in South Asia. I think that has come out very strongly, which is not the case before for MDGs, but being comprehensive, holistic and integrated, it has a great opportunity for real transformation here. We also heard a lot about integration, and then the vertical as well as horizontal. I think these are very important issues because of the very nature of the SDG goals that I just talked about in the beginning as well. And then the coherence at all levels and the multi-stakeholder partnership. I think this is very important, that has come out everywhere. Government has to take the lead role, but the government alone cannot really do it. Many of the goals that we have over there also relate to how you deal with the, for example, private sector, sustainable consumption and patterns. How do you really do that without taking into account the private sector, the overall, the households as well as the overall community, and then the gender empowerment and other issues which are really critical. Whenever you look at the South Asia, governance, gender issues, there is a long way to go. We have made a lot of progress, but there is a long way to go. I think those are some of the issues that have come out very strongly, whether it is about vulnerability, marginalized group, their participation, empowerment, all these issues have to remain high on the agenda of everyone. And then we also heard that how to really go down to the, the last mile, that we heard the base of the pyramid.